There comes a time in every man's life where silence becomes the most powerful weapon. Not because you're weak. Not because you don't have something to say. But because you finally understand that letting someone sit in the consequences of their own choices is louder than any argument. She knows what she did. She felt the moment your energy shifted. She felt the warmth turn to cold. She felt the door she thought would always be open begin to close, and this time, you're not waiting there to stop it. You see, guilt doesn't need help. It doesn't need reminders, lectures, or confrontation. It just needs silence. It needs space. It needs time to echo louder in her own mind than you ever could. She's playing strong. Acting like she's fine. But that's a mask. Every quiet moment, every still hour, every time she picks up her phone and sees no message from you. That guilt builds. It grows like pressure behind a dam. And your silence? It's the crack that deepens. She expected your rage. She expected your reaction. But your peace is terrifying. It tells her everything she never wanted to admit. That you're not begging. That you're not chasing. That you finally see her for what she is. And when guilt meets silence, something incredible happens. The weight of her actions becomes unbearable. She might not say it. She might pretend. But inside, she's collapsing. Let her. Let her guilt become the punishment. Not because you're heartless, but because you're done giving passes. Because real men don't chase chaos. They walk away from it. So say nothing. Not out of spite, but out of power. Because the strongest message is no message at all. And when she finally breaks down, when she tries to come back, she'll realize the man she thought would never leave already did. In silence. And that silence was louder than love, louder than hate, louder than any words you could have ever said. Silence is strength not because it lacks expression, but because it reflects the depth of control. In a world that constantly demands a reaction, silence becomes a rare and powerful force. When someone wrongs you, the natural instinct is to speak out, to defend, to retaliate. But silence, when used with intention, is not passive. It is a conscious decision. A decision to rise above chaos, to maintain your dignity, and to choose your battles with precision. There is a certain psychological intensity that comes with silence. It forces the other person to sit with their actions, to think, to reflect. Most people rely on your reaction to justify their behavior. They want to provoke you so they can feel like the victim. They want you to lash out so they can point fingers and escape accountability. But when you stay quiet, when you say nothing, you take that power away from them. You remove their ability to twist the story. Your silence becomes their mirror. Reflecting their own guilt, their own shame, and their own choices back at them. People often misunderstand silence as weakness. They assume that if you don't speak, you're hurting, that you're too stunned to respond. But the truth is, silence is a form of emotional discipline that many can't master. It's easier to scream, to argue, to post something impulsive online. It's much harder to hold your tongue, stay calm, and let your silence speak for itself. That kind of strength only comes from knowing who you are and what you will no longer tolerate. When you're silent, you protect your energy. You don't waste your breath on someone who already knows they did you wrong. You don't engage in games or try to prove your worth. You simply remove your presence, and that absence becomes louder than any confrontation. Silence disrupts. It unsettles. It leaves people wondering where they stand with you. And in that space of uncertainty, their own mind becomes their punishment. What silence does better than any words is create space. Space for you to heal. Space for them to feel. Space for the truth to echo louder than emotion. And in that space, clarity rises. You begin to see things for what they are, not what you hoped they'd be. You regain your power not by forcing closure, but by accepting that some things don't need to be explained or resolved, they just need to end. And that end, sealed in silence, carries more finality than any goodbye ever could. So when someone disrespects you, when they lie, cheat, betray, or play with your emotions, don't respond. Don't beg, argue, or try to make them see your worth. Just stop. Let your silence be the boundary. Let it be the message. Let it say everything your words no longer need to. Because when you're truly strong, you realize that sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. Guilt doesn't need help. It doesn't need reminders, lectures, or confrontation to do its work. It operates silently, invisibly, but powerfully. When someone has wronged you, especially someone who knows they did, your silence and absence become the stage on which guilt performs. There's no need to chase them down with accusations, no need to outline everything they did wrong. They already know. The truth is living in their mind like a shadow that won't leave, showing up in the quiet moments, the still nights, and the spaces where your presence used to be. When someone betrays you, they might not feel guilt right away. They may rationalize, justify, or even deny it. But denial is only a temporary refuge. Guilt creeps in when the distractions fade, when the newness of whatever they ran to loses its thrill. It sneaks up in conversations, songs, places, and smells that remind them of you. And what makes guilt unbearable is not your voice, it's your silence. Not your confrontation, it's your detachment. Because when you no longer seek justice or clarity from them, they are left to seek it within themselves. That's where the suffering begins. People can defend themselves against accusations. They can shout back, gaslight, twist the story to protect their image. But they can't defend themselves against silence. They can't reason with a quiet phone, a door that won't open, or a man who's simply gone. That kind of absence forces introspection. And when someone knows they've betrayed a good thing, that introspection turns into regret. They begin to see themselves not as they want to be seen, but as they truly are. That reflection can be brutal. Guilt is a natural response to violating one's own internal code. No matter how someone tries to mask it with arrogance, deflection, or pretense, the guilt still lingers beneath the surface. It hides behind the selfies, the laughter, the distractions. But it waits. And the longer it waits, the heavier it becomes. The weight isn't something you have to carry. It's theirs. And by staying silent, by not intervening, you allow them to carry what they created. Your words can be dismissed. Your emotions can be ignored. But their own conscience? That's personal. It's not something they can easily escape. And guilt isn't a one-time feeling, it's recurring. It revisits them in cycles. Every time they see someone who resembles you, every time they hear your name, every time they look back at what they lost because of their own behavior. That cycle becomes their consequence. You don't need to help guilt do its job. You don't need to play judge or executioner. Time and truth will do that work for you. All you need to do is step back, hold your peace, and let nature take its course. Guilt doesn't scream like anger, it whispers, relentlessly, over and over. And in that whisper, it breaks them down far more effectively than you ever could. Emotional detachment is psychological power because it gives you clarity when everyone else is clouded by chaos. It allows you to step back and observe without getting pulled into the drama, manipulation, or emotional traps others try to set. When you're emotionally detached, you don't stop caring, you stop overreacting. You stop giving people the ability to control your inner world with their words, their actions, or their absence. You become calm in the storm, grounded in your own sense of worth, and almost untouchable to those who thrive on provoking emotions in others. People often misunderstand emotional detachment as coldness or indifference. But it's not about shutting down your feelings, it's about mastering them. It's about knowing when to feel and when to step back. When someone tries to hurt you, manipulate you, or use your emotions against you, detachment becomes your shield. You don't react. You don't beg for clarity. You don't chase after closure. You simply observe, understand, and move accordingly. That unnerves people. They expect emotional responses, anger, pain, desperation. When they don't get that from you, it unsettles them. It forces them to question their own behavior because they can't shift the blame onto your reaction. Detachment is the ability to pause. To wait. To not answer that text immediately. To not defend yourself when someone distorts the truth. To not engage in every emotional tug-of-war that's thrown your way. And that pause, that space you create between stimulus and response, is where your power lives. That's where you reclaim your control. Emotional detachment doesn't make you heartless, it makes you wise. You learn that not every battle is worth fighting, not every comment needs a reply, and not every person deserves access to your energy. Once you understand emotional detachment, you begin to see how much of life is a test of your self-control. You recognize that people who once had the power to disrupt your peace only had that power because you gave it to them. You allowed your emotions to become a battlefield where others could fight for control. But when you detach, you remove the battlefield entirely. Now they're swinging at air. Now they're left with themselves. And that silence, that calm, becomes your loudest message. There is a unique kind of strength that comes from feeling everything and still choosing not to act on impulse. That's emotional discipline. That's psychological warfare at its finest. You don't need to threaten, plead, or prove anything. Your calmness in the face of betrayal or disrespect says everything. People start to see you differently. They realize you can't be toyed with emotionally. They realize your peace is not easily disturbed. And once you get to that point, very few can manipulate you. Emotional detachment isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of strength. It's knowing that your value doesn't decrease just because someone else couldn't see it. It's refusing to let your emotions become a playground for someone else's damage. That's not weakness. That's power. The kind of power that comes from mastering yourself. She expected a reaction, because that's how the game usually goes. She thought you'd explode, demand answers, beg for explanations. She counted on your anger to validate her importance, to prove that she still had power over your emotions. That's what people like her rely on, your reaction. Your rage gives them attention, your pain gives them ego, and your confusion gives them control. But this time, you gave her something else entirely. You gave her peace. Not peace as a gift, but peace as a boundary. Peace that said, I'm done. Peace that spoke louder than any outburst ever could. When you didn't lash out, when you didn't chase, something inside her shifted. She was prepared for drama. She had her lines ready, her excuses rehearsed, her tears close to the surface just in case she needed to play the victim. But you denied her the performance. You didn't show up for the role she had written for you. You just let it go. You stepped out of the chaos like it never belonged to you. And that silence? That calm? It rattled her. She thought she'd be able to push your buttons, provoke your jealousy, manipulate your emotions like before. But now, all she's left with is herself, and that's a lonely place to be when she's used to feeding off your reactions. She expected the storm. But you gave her stillness. And in that stillness, she heard everything. Every unspoken truth. Every unacknowledged wrong. Every action she tried to justify, echoed back to her in the space your peace created. Peace isn't passive, it's a message. It's saying, I saw what you did. I felt it. I processed it. And I'm choosing not to let it live inside me. It's a declaration that says, you no longer have the privilege of my reaction, because you no longer have access to my heart. That kind of peace isn't weakness. It's self-respect. It's self-preservation. It's the realization that your energy is sacred, and not everyone deserves to witness your emotions. When you respond with peace, you break the cycle. You don't argue in circles. You don't revisit the same pain over and over. You simply remove yourself from the game, and that's something they never saw coming. She didn't expect the silence. She didn't expect the indifference. And now, every moment of peace you maintain becomes her reminder that she lost something valuable. Not because you shouted. Not because you made a scene. but because you didn't. You moved on quietly, and that silence is haunting. She hears it every time her phone doesn't buzz. She feels it when she's surrounded by people but still feels empty. She remembers it when she tries to fill the void with attention that doesn't compare. She expected to win by causing chaos. But instead, you won by creating peace, and nothing confuses someone who thrives on drama more than the man who simply walks away without a word. Walking away is the highest form of self-respect because it means you've finally recognized your worth. It's not about pride or ego, it's about clarity. It's the quiet, powerful realization that staying in a situation that disrespects you, confuses you, or drains you is no longer an option. It's understanding that no amount of love, history, or potential is worth sacrificing your peace, your dignity, or your sanity. When you walk away, you're not giving up, you're growing up. You're choosing yourself in a world that often teaches you to choose others first, even at your own expense. There is incredible strength in the decision to stop explaining yourself. To stop proving your value to someone who refuses to see it. To stop participating in relationships, conversations, or cycles that no longer serve your growth. People who are used to your silence, your forgiveness, your patience, they never expect you to leave. They expect one more chance. One more compromise. One more time where you'll accept less than you deserve. But the moment you walk away is the moment you show them that you finally know who you are. That you've drawn a line, and this time it won't be crossed. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to let go of what hurts. It means you've had enough of being manipulated, gaslight, overlooked, or taken for granted. And the beauty of walking away is that it doesn't require a speech. It doesn't need to be loud or dramatic. It just needs to be final. That silence, your absence, becomes your loudest message. And that message speaks volumes. It tells the world that you respect yourself enough to no longer beg, plead, or fight for a place in someone's life who isn't fighting for you. What most people don't realize is that staying in the wrong situation often feels easier than leaving it. There's comfort in familiarity, even when it hurts. There's fear in the unknown, even when it holds freedom. But when you finally walk away, you break the chains of emotional dependency. You take your power back from someone who's been holding it in their hands for far too long. You no longer wait for apologies that won't come, or closure that isn't needed. You give yourself the peace you've been waiting for others to provide. The moment your back turns, everything shifts. They may call it cold. They may call you heartless. But deep down, they know what it really is, strength. They know it's what they never expected you to do. Because walking away shows that you are no longer controlled by hope, memory, or fantasy. You are grounded in reality, and that reality says, I deserve more. It's one of the hardest things to do, but it's also the most necessary. Because when you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you walk toward everything that does. And that's when your life truly begins. Your absence will be her mirror. Not your words, not your explanations, not your attempts to make her understand, but your silence, your distance, your vanishing presence. That's what will echo the truth she tried to avoid. Because when you were there, she could deflect, deny, distract. She could shift blame, twist the narrative, and bury guilt under a mountain of noise. But when you walk away and say nothing, when you stop showing up, stop responding, stop caring, that's when the reflection becomes clear. Your absence is a space too quiet to ignore. It forces her to see herself, maybe for the first time. She will try to fill it with something. Attention, validation, maybe even someone new. But nothing replaces the man who brought peace, loyalty, and consistency. Because deep down, she knows she didn't lose you over a mistake, she lost you over a pattern. A pattern you tolerated until it started breaking you. A pattern she thought you'd always put up with. And when you stopped, when you disappeared without warning or explanation, it interrupted her rhythm. It made her pause. And in that pause, the mirror appeared. The silence becomes haunting, not because she misses your voice, but because it carries weight. It says everything you no longer need to explain. It forces her to retrace her steps and question her choices. That mirror starts showing her not just who you were, but who she chose to be in response. It reveals her pride, her carelessness, her inability to appreciate what was real while she had it. And while she may not admit it to anyone, she'll see it in private moments. In the middle of the night. In the quiet mornings. In the reflection of a man who loved her right and left because he had to. People think presence is powerful, and it is, but absence, when rooted in self-respect, is devastating. When a man who gave everything without drama, without games, without manipulation, simply walks away, it forces a reckoning. She will scroll through old messages, replay past conversations, and wonder when exactly she lost the man who once looked at her like she was his entire world. And the tragedy isn't that she lost him, the tragedy is that she didn't recognize his value until his absence made it impossible to ignore. Your absence becomes her reality check. A reminder that love doesn't beg, it doesn't force, and it certainly doesn't stay where it's not valued. You were her mirror too, while you were there. Reflecting back loyalty, patience, and love. But now, without you, she's left staring at herself, and she won't like what she sees. Because now she sees what she cost herself. And the irony is, the very thing she didn't appreciate, your presence, is the very thing that reveals the truth through its absence. That's the mirror she can't escape. The reflection she'll never forget. So don't text her. Don't call. Don't chase closure. Let her sit in the silence she created. Let her replay every moment in her mind and realize, on her own, what she lost. Your silence is not weakness. It's your power. It's the echo of everything she did and everything she refused to admit. Her guilt is growing, not because you forced it, but because you didn't. That's what makes it real. Let it build. Let it burn. And when it finally crushes her, let it be the weight of her own choices that brings her to her knees, not your words. Say nothing. Just keep walking.